Welcome everyone to the Relentless Hope Studio. My name is Cindy Metcalf. I'm the director of Relentless Hope. I am the host of this show. We have a wonderful guest on here today. She is making her debut, sharing her story. I also have here with me my wonderful co-host Sherry Bergraft, and she's going to introduce Susie. And yeah, we're going to just relax and kick back and listen to her story. We are so excited about this. So take it away, Sherry.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and thanks to everyone at Relentless Hope. I feel so honored to be a co-host and to be able to introduce and bear witness to the testimonies of survivors who, in my opinion, are heroes and warriors. And these precious survivors are definitely miracles. Welcome, Susie.
Thank you.
So before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to pray. And just a reminder to survivors, the content as well as the prayer can be triggering. So pause, stop, and do self-care as needed. Um, so Lord God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that you've given to Susie today. And we ask that you wrap your almighty protection around her and us and all that are listening. Cover us with the blood of your Son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Protect this Zoom space and the technology that we utilize and guard every heart, every mind, every precious soul listening today. And we ask that your light would pierce through any darkness that would try to interfere, and we thank you for your promise that no weapon formed against us will prosper. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. It is my deepest honor to, and I know it is for Cindy too, to provide a space for survivors to be able to tell their story. And these are people that have walked through the valley of the deepest shadows of hell, children whose innocence was stolen by the cruelest designs of evil, and yet they emerge with what I feel like is heaven's fire in their hearts and souls. And the darkness of ritual abuse that seeks to shatter them actually becomes the place where the scars give them the strength, where those broken places are what God uses to shine through. And they truly are like a testimony of resurrection power.
Mm.
Um, it is, it's hard to believe that I only met Susie a month ago. And though our paths only crossed that recent, she quickly became a friend and a treasured sister in Christ. She is a devoted mother. I actually got to meet one of her children, and her love for her children runs deeper than the ocean. And her courage in sharing her story today springs from a holy passion to advocate for others and to be able to speak out for those who may be afraid that their story might be too different or doesn't quite fit the narrative. But she said she wants people to just go for it and to whisper to those who feel lonely that you are not alone. Susie is passionate about life to the point where her and I talked this week, and she said she is done just surviving. And she carries with her the truth that joy can bloom as we overcome trauma, that beauty can rise from the ashes, and even when you haven't yet arrived, we can help each other to heal. She loves art, music, designing spaces of beauty, celebrating through sports, exploring God's creation by traveling with family. And she stands as living proof that we are more than conquerors through Christ who loves us. It is so awesome having you here, Susie.
Well, you're gonna make me
Thank
cry.
you.
I That's such a treasure that you see me that way. So thank you. Um, I feel remarkably blessed to have this experience, to finally be able to share my story. I've actually been searching um, for 13 years. So Relentless Hope is perfect for that because I've been hoping relentlessly that somebody would actually listen and believe.
Mm.
And I don't want people to trust in me, but trust in their creator, which for me is God. I'm not gonna, I don't need people to necessarily believe me, but what is touched or impressed on their hearts or in their minds or however they connect, um, what they seem, what truth resonates with them. I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm here for my own healing, and the process of all of it has, I'm I'm amazed and mind blown and of how God works in our lives individually and brings us together to do this. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I would just like to take a moment to share something. I'm sure it's okay with Susie to share this, but before we left where we had met, um, we had a couple of hours together, and my husband got to meet her as well. And little beknownst to me, I didn't know the the horror that she had been through, and she was able to speak to my husband in length about that, and then myself, both of us. And during the time we were together, the Lord was answering those many, many years of prayers, um, in just the encounter that we had. So I am so grateful to God to, you know, when we're used that way, it's an honor. And then God answered a prayer for me through her. So it's amazing to be able to share a little bit of that too, because whenever God answers our prayers, and he uses someone to do that, he always blesses both people at the same time. So I'm deeply grateful and thankful to God.
Yeah. And the timing was perfect because we were supposed to have another survivor on here and she had to back out. So Susie just jumped right in and said, I'll do it. And so I'm like, yes, thank you, Susie. I was so excited.
Ah,
Yeah. The timing is um anything, I mean, anything but God's, right? I
Yeah.
mean, glory to him because of the timing. It's the way it's played out in my current life is he just keeps unfolding and blessing and going back to where you said I'm done surviving and I'm ready to thrive. This is part of it, is the doors that he opens for the thriving. And I will say I've been looking for 13 years, but over the last year I've reached out to, I can't even tell you how many um, different podcast people to share my story, and none of them have responded.
Mm.
So
ah,
this is where, Cindy and Cherry, I really want to express my gratitude to you guys to giving giving me this space. So
It's an
um
honor.
it is. And just like
oh
Cindy said earlier, like another person had to cancel. And yes, we were disappointed, but then I was going to talk to Susie anyway. And it's like, I feel like God opened that door. Like when something happens and it looks like, well, the door closed, it's like he opened the door. And I really feel like this is the day the Lord has made just for you, Susie,
Mhm.
right here, right now.
yes. Yes,
Mhm.
for sure. I think people probably are like, well, if she really wants to share a story, why can't she show her face? And I think as I go through and share, um, because it's still currently, there are pieces that are still current concerns. And so I do need to, above everything, protect my family. I'm not necessarily afraid for myself, but I am afraid um, for my children, and I'm not willing
Totally.
to continue the generational abuse that happens in these situations. And um, I think that's why it's so important to speak out and to have the courage to share with whoever, if it's on a grand scale like this, or just individually with people. And that's where the healing starts, I think, is being able
Mhm.
to have somebody to share it with that will actually believe you. And I love, Cindy, how you've said for Relentless Hope, you believe, you guys believe this,
Absolutely.
believe it until it's proven otherwise, instead of the other way around, because
Mhm.
a lot of things you can't prove.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely. I don't know how you can listen to a survivor story and not feel a tug in your heart or I mean, I can always tell when a survivor is genuine. And since there are no such thing as false memories, there is no such thing as a satanic panic. We know survivors are telling the truth because we've talked to hundreds of survivors and they tell us of the same abuse. They don't know each other and they're talking about the
right,
same ceremonies, the same patterns, even some of the same places and perpetrators. So we believe, and even the stuff that you would consider kind of out there, we've heard it. We believe that too. We've heard of
right.
Nephilim. We've heard of the alien experiences. We've heard of portals. We've heard, I mean, so nothing is off the table. Anything and everything. And I commend you for protecting your privacy. That is for you and your family. That's number one. We have absolutely zero problem with you using this lovely photo, this lovely picture, and modifying your voice to keep you protected. So that's number one. A lot of podcasts won't do that. They want someone to show their face. They want them to use their real voice. They want them to name names, and we don't do that here. If a survivor does want to name names, that's up to them. But we're not going to put pressure on you to do that in private. If you would like to discuss those names with us, because we keep account. We have a list of over 600 perpetrators, and most of them are here in Utah, as you can imagine. So we do keep track because we're hoping at someday that would be able to point to a larger investigation. And we protect survivors' identity.
I would say my earliest memories of childhood, I really grew up thinking my childhood was normal. But as I've passed my childhood, I'm and having more memories come up, it's interesting to see that it was not what a normal childhood should be. Um, as a 4-year old, um, was I think my earliest memories of my perpetrators were, 4 or 5 years old. Can't exactly name it other than, and I'll say my perpetrators are family members, and I don't want to even identify them further than close family members because they know who they are. And hearing, if they were to ever hear this, they would know who they are. um,
Yeah.
so I guess I would start with the earliest memory is showering with a perpetrator, like it was a normal thing. Um, and this is an adult perpetrator of the opposite sex. And I was at their genital level, face to face with that. And I was raised and born in the covenant of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so to have that as one of my earliest memories of sharing with this adult figure at their genital level, yet the privacy of sexuality and sex is, you don't talk about it. It's not okay. The morality of being clean and having those parts of your body be sacred, yet I'm knowingly showering with this perpetrator, with other perpetrators, knowing that that's happening.
Do you think your parents knew this was happening to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They did. Okay. All right.
I think what's really difficult, because there were so many different experiences, it was not just sexual, it was neglectful, it was physical abuse, it was emotional abuse, authoritarian abuse. I mean, I would say it was very related to, yeah, law enforcement. All of these abuses were tied in together. Medical abuse, testing on all different levels. So I would say, and some of these things I didn't realize until later in life, which is so strange because you would think, well, wouldn't that be weird to, like, for instance, being handcuffed to a chair for 8 hours with my a very close family member crying in tears because one of the perpetrators would not come release me, because if I was stupid enough to be handcuffed to something, then I needed to pay the penalty for that. So the same perpetrator that would shower with me also did lie detector tests. They owned a lie detector company. And this perpetrator not only did lie detectors in his office, but also used it at my home growing up.
So was
And
this person a part of the law enforcement?
yes, yeah,
He was. Okay.
yeah. And later on, on the religious side, was in bishoprics, was a bishop in state presidency positions. And then later on, after retiring from law enforcement, moved on to DCFS, which is all part of this story. And so, and then not only did he do lie detection, but he also got training for hypnotherapy and did hypnosis on me throughout my life. And that was only one part. That was only one of the perpetrators. The other perpetrator was a younger male who would not have access to LDS temple rituals and ritualistically sexually abused me. And I can go into detail about that. It's different than any of the other survivor stories that I've ever heard. So it's strange to feel really alone in this, because I've never heard. But what he would do is he would, after each sexual act, he would take me out wrapped in a blanket, skin to skin, naked, and we do kind of this lap around this basement and then into a food storage area and then back out. And it was terrifying because I was, even as a child, I was 5 or 6 years old, and he, the perpetrator was 12, maybe 11, 12, depending on what my age was.
Was he forced to do the things he did to you, or do you think he did it on his own accord?
I that's where I don't have any memories. I feel like he did it on his own accord, because I had found out later that he was sent to a camp for anger management, where, because I did address this with him, not as in detail as I have addressed with you, because when I addressed it, it was, there weren't as many memories as I currently have now.
But you said you had a perpetrator who was in law enforcement. Obviously, a 12-year-old child isn't in law enforcement at that age.
Right. So
did he grew up? Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Ask your question.
I was just going to say, did he grow up to become a police officer or someone in law enforcement?
That younger perpetrator did become, and is, as far as I know, currently still in a government. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's possible
Law
then
enforcement type.
it's possible he was being abused by the same people.
Correct.
And before you continue, I just want to say how sorry that we are that this happened to you. And thank you for sharing something that you haven't heard other survivors talk about, because when you do that, you can break the silence and the feeling that, oh my gosh, my abuse is so different. No one will believe me, or, and in doing that, you can break the shame. And there may be other people that are hearing exactly what you're sharing, and they need to have affirmation and confirmation of something bizarre that's happened to them. So thank you.
Right. Oh, thank you. And so, yeah, going back to that young perpetrator, he, later on, as I went through the LDS temple, I started making different connections on how the abuse related to the actual LDS temple ceremony.
Okay. Are you talking about the LDS temple downtown or somewhere else?
The LDS temple downtown. Yeah. The Salt Lake LDS temple. Yep. And so he would, again, and it's very related to the symbols on the garments and things like that. And so, and again, as this young man who's not been through the endowment ceremony, how would he have known this without having someone have taught him? And so that's why it's so different, because it relates, it's opposite of the satanic ritual abuse, right? Which is with the blood rituals and things like that. This is actually what, if someone were to go through a temple today, they would experience some of these covenants and things that they are making currently.
Okay.
And so, like, I would say, so what he did is he started at my chest and did one side of my chest, and then took me out, wrapped in the blanket, and then came back and did the other side of my chest, wrapped me in blanket. We went out, came back. Then he penetrated my belly button, my navel area. And then we went out and then came back, and then he would touch my genitals. And then we went back out. And then the final the end part, well, almost end part would be to kneel down on bended knee and perform oral on him. And then we'd go out one last time and then took me back into the room, and which, by the way, was the same room that I would have the lie detector test done by the other perpetrator.
Was there any Freemasonry involved? Aspects of the Freemason rituals or?
And not to me,
Okay, okay, no,
but to my children, yeah,
yeah,
later
okay,
on.
okay.
And so, yeah, and so that would happen, and then the way it would end is he would have me lay with him naked in the blanket, skin to skin, and then he would rub my back and comfort me and tell me everything was okay, and the grooming stuff, and don't worry, you don't have to tell anybody, nobody has to know that this is happening, so on and so forth.
Was it
That's
all
one of the most
sexual or, oh, I'm sorry. We keep talking over each other. I'm so sorry. I was just going to ask, was it all just sexual or did he harm you and hurt you? Like, did he do
um,
any torture type
Well, he was the one
things?
that would handcuff me to things as a joke or playing around in
Gotcha. Okay.
broad daylight. So the sexual stuff was in private, but yeah, he would, in fact, he would lead me out and make me eat dog food or trick me into eating dog food, um, and guide me around that way. Or, um, again, like I said, he would do things to get me in trouble because we would, if we were to say bad words or get angry with one another, then that's where another perpetrator would come in, and which this is really common, would put soap in our mouth and grind it into our teeth and shove our chins so that our mouth was closed and grind bars of soap into our teeth or hot sauce on the tongue. Um, wooden, even used wooden meat cleavers to spank us, or wooden spoons with holes in them to do extra damage. And yet, anyone who knows these people would never believe that they would do anything like this. Even to this day, I would be called a liar and crazy, which comes later down the story, is the discrediting of as an adult, and where I am currently.
we definitely believe you, and how confusing for a 4-year-old, to have, an adult showering with you, but yet, you know, they're the epitome of purity and, being clean sexually and stuff, and yet they're doing that to you. And then, being held and having some comfort afterwards, that is so confusing. And then how humiliating to, like you have to eat dog food and it's just like it creates so much confusion. But we definitely believe you. We know
Thank
these
you.
these things happen.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, and then, as I grew into a teenager, obviously those those things stopped, just because they're not gonna, well, at least my perpetrators weren't going to continue it in the sense of they don't want to get caught, because I would try to speak out in different areas, and since childhood, um, I knew I had to keep my mouth shut or there were
When when
grave
you would
consequences.
when you would speak out as a child, what would happen,
Mm-hmm.
Susie?
Um, whew, gosh, can't even really identify something specific, but something that would comes to mind is like, if I were sick, I would, I mean, I have this one image of in the middle of the night, I got sick and my parent, sorry. Yeah, my parents' door was shut and I was throwing up profusely and I was forced to clean up my own throw up as a 5 or 6 year old.
Were you having any medical issues during this time?
uh,
Well,
no, I wasn't, but
okay.
that leads me to another part of my childhood, which I appreciate you going there, Cindy, is we were taken up to the University of Utah hospital during the summer, and I was told that we were in clinical trials and we did this multiple, remember, multiple years being followed. And they would, we were supposed to go as a family, and we did. We travel up there every day, but I don't remember ever being in rooms with my family members, my other family members.
So you were by yourself in a hospital room?
Yeah, and so they did
Okay.
all sorts of different, like testing, like EKG, the brain wave testing, treadmill testing. They took our blood, or they took my blood. Um, they did psychological testing with, just different shapes and all the, I can't even remember right now what the cards that you look at, all of these trauma based, what do you see in this picture, that are now, all over the internet. Um, and then
Were these like legitimate doctors and nurses that were doing this? Were they studying you for a legitimate purpose, or did you know that these were people part of the system?
I don't know. That's what
Okay.
I don't know, because
Okay.
um, I randomly got a call after after my first psychiatric hospital. um, I randomly got a call from the same clinical trial, which I hadn't been in for 10, 15 years. And they said, "Will you come do this?" And I said, "No."
Yeah.
And I've never heard from them ever again.
So they had
So,
contacted you like 15 years or so after they had initially done all these
mm,
things.
mhm, yeah. And again, I don't know if it was legitimate. I was told it was legitimate and that it was but with everything that's happened, I question it. And then going back, sorry, one thing going back in my childhood that was also really strange was I had a sibling who died. And when I would ask about what happened, nobody really ever addressed what happened, other than, I mean, there was a basic story, and I don't want to really go into that just because that's quite identifying. um,
Or
but even as I've tried to research and find, um, there's a headstone that I've visited since childhood, but I've not been able to find an obituary, and I haven't done a ton of research, so I could probably go back and find some kind of archive of it. But I nobody's ever willing to open up and actually express what actually happened, and or even have any emotion regarding it. It was all, you don't ask questions about this, stop and don't be inquisitive. Keep quiet.
Right. And with the abuse that you had, like the sexual abuse and all that, like they teach you and groom you to be silent about everything. And it sounds like they were hiding a lot of things from you. It doesn't sound like any of these clinical trials or medical tests and psychological testing was anything that was for your benefit, because usually when that happens, your parents take you and usually you know what's going on and why, and you know at least someone is helping you. It
Right.
doesn't sound like any of that was a part of it. And I know how
And I,
memories are. You don't always get the whole scenario. You get bits and pieces and things that you always remembered. And
right. And the fragmentation of it all is, and the splitting, it intentionally creates DID.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
so it gets really messy and uncomfortable, and people don't like to talk about it or hear about it, because it is so intense.
What the
So
things they were doing to you, was it hurt? Were they helping you or was it painful, any of it, or just weird?
I,
Yeah.
I dissociate a lot, or I know I
Okay.
dissociated a lot as a child. So I couldn't really tell you. I can tell you that I have a very high pain tolerance. I mean, this is where I would say I'm not trying to convince anybody of everything, but people can
Yeah.
piece together what they know, and um, going on to be confusing, and but yet to seem so normal. Like, this is what everybody does. We're just trying to get educated and help people find cures for
Right.
cancer and
and when you're
things like that.
just
Okay.
and when you're just surviving to get through it all, you're not trying to remember details, or you're just trying to get through it at the time. Oh, I think I was just mentioning, like, when you're just trying to survive and get through it, you're not like trying, you're not focusing on details, or you're just getting through it. And
Right.
it makes sense that, it's kind of iffy and for you and to piece it all together.
In fact, there was one time in second grade that I was so terrified to ask to go to the bathroom that I peed my pants in class, and then was made fun of
No.
because of that.
Kids can be so cruel.
Yeah.
And then punished for doing that at home.
Oh no.
Um,
How was
so,
your school years? Um, were you able to, you know, function well enough
well,
to?
yeah, I mean, in high school, I graduated honors with on the honor roll. In elementary school, I was always made fun of being the teacher's pet and being helpful and including the kids that didn't get included. Um,
Were you ever abused at school?
um, no,
Okay. That's
that's one place that seems like I wasn't. I can remember. I know that all of my teachers liked me. I only, in all of my years of schooling from kindergarten up through high school, I never got in trouble other than one time in fourth grade. And I was being bullied by a circle of boys. And I grabbed the biggest kid and I threw him to the ground because they wouldn't let me get out of the circle. And and I had ripped a button off of his shirt. And so his teacher pulled me out of class and started screaming at me in the hallway. And my teacher came out and defended me and said, there's got to be more to the story than she just threw him to the ground.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, speaking of school, there was another incident where there was, and this is heartbreaking because I have a disabled child myself. In high school, there was a disabled girl who was in the bathroom, and some boys had lured her in there and put a can of aerosol hairspray in her genitals, and it got stuck. And she was crying, and there was blood, and it was terrifying. And the school administration covered it up, and I don't even know how many people know of this, but they rushed me out and said go back to class because it was during class period. It wasn't, there weren't people roaming in the halls, and it was just, and they took this disabled girl to the hospital. I mean, and so it's just and the boys didn't get in trouble for it.
No, that had to be traumatizing for you to know about that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And that they covered it up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder what they told the parents.
I don't know. But
I
nobody
can't.
ever interviewed me. I was just sent back to class.
They got mad at you.
And they did get mad at me for, addressing it with the administration and then
Oh my
alerting them
gosh.
of this happening.
And you're being a button off the price.
So, yeah.
We hear a lot of stories with things going on with the schools and the schools trying to cover things up. Unfortunately, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Shockingly. I mean, these are administrators, principals, teachers.
Well, recently with one of my children, I battled with the school district because he was sexually assaulted by kids from his school. One of the kids that he met, it was off of school grounds. We did press charges. One of the children did get in trouble for it, but the other one, because of his family relations in government, in the judiciary system, we confronted the school because he was still getting bullied at school and being picked on. We fought with the administration for 3 months from the beginning of the school year because the assault happened over the summer. And then, we addressed it with the administration when I first got back and said, we need to keep these kids apart. And it was a battle for 3 months. And finally, after speaking with district officials, we removed him and started homeschooling him because they would not protect him, which then goes even further into, like they kept saying, well, just use the safe UT app and address it there. But when you do that, it goes directly back to the schools. And if the school is not going to do anything about it, then it just gets dismissed and lost.
So before you get into all of
Yeah.
that, to help you
Yeah.
keep on the chronological
Yeah.
line here, just to help you with sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Was there any other childhood, teenage things that you want to share before you get into like what happened as an adult I know you said you excelled in school and was on the honor roll and things, and it sounds like the school was, other than the incident with the hairspray and the girl that was disabled, and then just different things not being followed through, that school was relatively safe other than being bullied by boys.
Well, see, that's where it gets murky again because I was in athletics. And so, and I'm talking, I did track and field, I did cross country, I did basketball, I did soccer. Yeah, I was busy doing all of that. And so my one of my childhood perpetrators, the one that did hypnosis on me, helped me, well, let's use hypnosis to help you excel in your sports and things like that. And
Wow.
oh, and his trigger word was sleep, which is a common, I mean, how many people use that during the day, right? Oh, I need some sleep.
Right.
I'm tired.
That was one of my words too.
Just common everyday language can become a trigger word used against you.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
But who knows what happened?
So yeah, and so I don't, where do you go with that? Because is it DID? Is it dissociation? Is it being in a hypnotic state? How are you functioning as a person when you're not your authentic self because of everything accumulatively that has come forth? So,
Because you would have had the dissociation and the fragmentation and just all of the things that make it so you're not functioning optimally.
right, right. And so I would say at this time, I don't have any memories of anything
But he was hypnotizing.
other than, knowing other girls who knowing multiple girls who had been also uh, sexually assaulted by, or even one comes to mind right now. And obviously, I'm not going to use her name either because of her life and where it's at now. But we connected because her perpetrators were similar to my perpetrators. Her experience was different of what they did to her. And so it's, it's hard to say because I remember connecting with multiple people and thinking, wow, there's a group of 5 girls here and 4 of us something has happened to sexually.
Did any teachers notice behavior that was different? Did anyone ask you as a teacher, like, are you okay?
No,
Is everything all right?
no,
Okay.
no. I was, trained to be a good girl. You follow you do what you're told and you toe the line. I mean, I guess that would go back to, I'll share this. Um, at home, our family home evening, we were demanded to say, I'm happy to be here. And we had to do that. And there were times where we would sit there for over an hour until all of my siblings agreed to say, I'm happy to be here and genuinely mean it. And, at times we would mess around and just make a game of it because it was so irritating that we had to toe the line and say, I'm happy to be here no matter what. If I couldn't authentically use your voice to say, you know what, I'm here. I don't want to be here, but I'm here doing it.
So these girls that you knew were also sexually assaulted uh, with the same perpetrators. Was that something that they told you or that you were a part of, that you were
Well,
involved?
no, their perpetrators were different perpetrators.
Oh, they're different perpetrators.
Yeah, but the similarity would be the familial representation. So my familial perpetrators were the same as their familial perpetrators.
So how does that conversation come up? The
Um,
abuse. How did you all decide it was safe to speak with one another?
they were different connections, and so, but they were through sports or um, my passions like art class and sports, and yeah,
Yeah,
and my
like girls tell each other things.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and you bond and you get close, and it's like, oh,
Yes.
I'm having a hard day, and you get you get close enough that you can share those things with some people.
Did anyone discuss about talking to someone about it, uh, telling an adult, going to a
Well,
teacher or anything?
the one girl that I was explaining earlier, she actually went to a school official and was close to a school official who was also in law enforcement, who I don't really know what happened and how it came about. All I know that had the support to um, live elsewhere um, in during the later years of high school.
So she moved away and lived with someone else.
Yeah, but not far, still within the city limits, and
Okay.
still continue to go to high school 1 year, 1 more year with us,
Oh, and then move to a different school
and
even.
then and then was moved to a different school. And so there again, I'm like, well, all of these other people have had different experiences, but have been, so it's normal, right? It's a normal thing. It kind of normalizes it when,
Yeah,
like
it
I said, four
does.
out of five girls,
Yeah.
It's
and
kind
doesn't
of like
everybody know about this?
exactly. It's kind of like the normalization that happens growing up as a child with all the different things that you talked about. It doesn't seem like a weird thing for you because you're just surviving it all. And you think, well, doesn't this happen in every family? And, then when you hear from other girls in school that, all these sexual things happen to them, it's just like, well, this is what happens to everybody. And
Right.
it is like, what is your norm?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I had worked with some survivors that didn't even recognize that they were being sexually abused because they're like,
Mm.
well, this happened all the time with everyone.
Right.
Grandpa just,
Right.
grandpa copped a feel on my cousin, and that was just normal. And they didn't realize that they were being sexually abused. Um, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
And just like people that are trafficked, it's like they don't know that it's trafficking. Um,
yeah,
like they're sexually abused as a child and maybe trafficked out as children and they grow up thinking that's normal. And if somebody even asks them if they were ever trafficked, they'd be like, I don't know what that is. I don't even know what you're talking about.
yeah,
And I think this is kind of where maybe people say, well, how can you believe these people? Because they really don't know, not really making much sense of it. Or if they don't, how can you say that you were abused if you don't know that you're being abused? Is it really abuse? And so those mind games and that,
Yeah, and there's so much done by perpetrators to get you to doubt your reality. Like even telling people that this isn't really even happening. Don't tell anybody. So then it's like your mind has to like find a way to not even know that it's abuse, much less tell someone. Um, so during your high school and the different things that you shared here, like, was there anything else you wanted to share before, like, talking about, like, graduating and what happened in your life after that?
um, I guess maybe the one thing that was very prevalent and highly pressured is just being part of that LDS Church, feeling that pressure to go confess any kind of indiscretion that a normal teenager would have. And feeling pressured as a teenage girl to sit across from an authority figure, confessing all of your sexual deviants. Yeah, indiscretions.
That had to be humiliating. I I can't imagine.
Yeah.
And it was probably an older gentleman.
Right.
Did he shame you in any way? Made you feel guilty?
Oh yeah, it was you've got to read the what is it, the forgiveness. Gosh.
Oh,
There's a certain book that back in the 80s that they would always, the miracle of forgiveness, there we go, written by the prophet, one of the prophets.
oh,
You've got to read that and take that to heart. And
I, I'm shocked. I'm not surprised. We've heard this before,
Mhm.
but that these men think it's okay.
Right, the family does, everybody, right,
For what they do.
right.
For what they do, but not only that, I'm sure girls went home and told maybe mom and dad what the bishop asked them, and they were okay with it. They didn't say anything.
Well, I was too
I,
scared to. Yeah,
yeah, this just it shocks me that this was considered okay in the LDS Church among
right.
bishops and stake presidents.
Yeah.
Apparently they don't do that anymore, though. My
Oh,
understanding.
okay.
Enough people, I guess, have come forward, and now the bishops aren't allowed to ask denigrating kind of questions or anything sexually. If anybody knows differently, let me know because
Oh, that
that
would be
needs to
good
be
to know.
addressed. Yeah, I
Even
mean,
in your baptismal interview, I remember after having all of this sexual stuff happen, I felt like I needed to confess, but I couldn't because I couldn't tell anybody. So there's this mix of I need to confess to have my sins washed away because I'm a sinner, because I've been a sexual deviant as an 8-year-old. um, which, especially in childhood, um, from the infant to 8 years old, are very formative years. And,
yeah,
and so,
absolutely. The perpetrators have a phrase. It's called, if they're 8, it's too late. So and it's true, they like the children. They like to get them at birth, definitely before the 3 years of age. And if you're 8 or above, when you enter into this kind of abuse cycle, your personality has already been formed and cemented by that age, and it's very difficult for them to program you, dissociate you. It's more difficult. And so that's why they like them young. That's the
right.
whole purpose. And so, why do you think they quit abusing you at 8?
Um, I think because the hypnosis continued, even through young adulthood, and even into my 20s. So to continue to either, um, I don't know. I mean, I would lose hours. I'm not talking, this was not like a hypnotherapy session that was an hour I would come out of it and it would be dark. And I'd be like, wait, what? What happened?
Yeah.
And with no memory of, literal no memory of what transpired over those 3 hours. Like I was asleep.
Did they drug you?
No, no.
No. Okay. All
just
right.
through hypnosis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That
So for
perpetrated. Yeah.
so for those of us like me and maybe
Mm-hmm.
other listeners who aren't
Yeah.
familiar with the LDS ch church doing like asking teenage girls, questions like that, is that well, see,
Mm-hmm.
like for me, I came out of a Catholic church, and so it was normal for me to go to the confessional and tell a priest my sins, and it's like the priest is the one who abused me, so it's like that does a thing to your mind, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm supposed to confess things that they did to me because, of course, I took the blame, as survivors do. But was this like a regular practice that they did? Like, and was it
Yeah.
like a scheduled thing or just random?
Well, so yeah, so in order to do one of the things in the temple, which is called baptisms for the dead. So when I was growing up, you had to be 12 years old. Now they've changed it to 11 years old. You can get a semi temple recommend where you're allowed to go do this ordinance, which is called baptisms for the dead. And you go and you get baptized for um, the names that they have in genealogy or family history or ancestry or whatever you want to call it. As they go through, they have these names of people who have died. And so they say, in for and on behalf of, and then they read the person who died's name, and then they baptize you. So, in order to have that, you have to have a yearly or every 2 years. They changed it. I can't remember exactly. I don't think I ever did it yearly, but every 2 years, you would have to go in and answer questions if you're worthy to go to the temple. And, you know, one of them is, are you morally clean? Way back when I was growing up, they literally straightforward asked you, are you morally clean? At 12 years old. What does that mean? Morally clean? I don't understand. Which was the sexual purity, which then, also lines up with when you would go to church classes during your regular Sunday service in what was called either mutual or young women's. They would teach, your sexual purity is based upon whether you know, are you sexually active? Do you pet? They talked about petting and necking and things like that. And if you did those kinds of things, you weren't worthy to enter the temple. And then, these lessons about teaching you that you're like a piece of gum. And once you have sex, you're a chewed up piece of gum. And who wants to chew a piece of gum, a chewed up piece of gum? You're damaged.
Did they explain anything about the baptism for the dead, or just is this just a
Oh,
ritual that they
no,
do?
no, you just, they don't ever explain anything about the temple before you go in. Now, there's a lot of things online now that have been exposed and things like that. Um, but it's all secret and, or sacred, excuse me. I'll use the term that it's sacred, but, yeah, they don't tell you about it. And then if you do have any weird, uncomfortable feeling, just ignore that feeling. It's not, uh, it's okay. Just ignore that feeling of uncomfortable. You'll get used to it. It will become normal because, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Kind of like
So,
everything, don't question it.
uh-huh. Yep. Don't ask questions. Just go toe the line. And so, I mean, I guess that's,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's how they get saved though, right? They become an LDS member because they've been baptized into the church.
Hmm.
And since they're dead, someone living has to
Do it for them.
do it for them, stand in their place.
Right.
And my understanding, it's from an obscure verse in the New Testament of the Bible, but they've skewed it because what the Apostle Paul is talking about in that particular verse is about another group, another religious sect back in his time that was doing baptisms for the dead. It was not anything sanctioned for a New Testament Christian at the time. He wasn't saying, wow, we need to do this. People need to do baptisms for the dead because the gospel is very clear on how you become saved. It's through your faith in Jesus Christ and his atonement on the cross. So you said the physical abuse still continued though until high school? Is
Um,
that, did I?
I don't, I think once there were more siblings that came along, it lightened up. And
Okay.
um, I would say that there were two, I mean, all households are different, but for sure the older siblings had a much different childhood experience versus the younger siblings. And I was
Better or
right in the middle.
worse?
The younger ones had it much better,
Okay.
much better. So, well, as far as I know, because again, nobody talks about it. And I will say that I have been estranged from my family of origin for since 2019 when we left the church. So,
When did you escape as a teenager? Did you graduate high school and move away, or how did you
yeah,
get a,
so I
okay.
graduated high school. I worked for I was planning on moving out with my best friend just after graduation, but she tragically died of a brain aneurysm a month and a half
No.
before we moved out. We were to move out.
Oh,
So,
It's
um,
horrific.
so that kind of put me into a depression, and I stayed in my childhood home for almost a year. So, but I did leave as soon as I could. I mean, I worked a lot so that I could move out, and I um, found a lot of purpose and um, did some schooling and worked my way up into a job that I eventually became the administrative assistant for the company, the president of the company at 20, 21 years old.
mhm.
Wow, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
So that was, and that's kind of the drive and the motivation that got me out of everything. As far as, well, at that time where I thought that I was out of it because I had enough separation from the perpetrators that I was able to kind of just shut it away, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but then when it really came out, and I was I was working as this administrative assistant, and um, I had a conversation at work, and I was speaking with the father of my children, and he sincerely, genuinely said, "I love you." And it triggered something in me where I had a pseudo seizure at work, and they had to take me into a conference room, and I wouldn't stop seizing. They called the ambulance. They were all terrified because all of these men that I was working for, none of them were LDS, none of them were from Utah. They were all brought in from different states and different religions. And so they had no idea, or would have no idea of, I couldn't explain anything to them, right, of what was happening. And so that's when I started therapy, is after that. And then I was able to address like the one perpetrator, that was the young boy, the young man, and it was dismissed. And you know, in this big therapy session, and it was insanely
Was dismissed in your therapy session?
yeah.
Oh no.
Like your counselor dismissed it? Or
She allowed people to dismiss it and said everybody's feelings are valid, and she
oh, this
was yeah.
was
Would it
was
be
this a group therapy? So there were other
No,
people
this was my
there?
individual therapist who, we everybody agreed to come to this therapy session, everyone that I invited
Wow.
to address
what a
it. And
betrayal.
yeah,
Yeah. That's not okay. She should
No,
have
definitely
lost
not.
her she should have lost her counseling license.
Yeah,
yeah,
she's supposed to be there for you.
right.
Wow. Okay. Is she still around?
Um, I don't know where she is at now. I did reconnect with her
Yeah.
back in 2019. So that is kind of a significant part of this, because even in 2019, she was still practicing as a
Oh,
licensed therapist
I'd
and
love to
LDS.
talk to you after
Yeah,
we're done here because
absolutely.
we need to
Yes.
know because
Yes.
we live in Salt Lake City, who's good and who's not, and there are so many counselors here. I don't
Mhm.
think this is a coincidence that have hurt, controlled survivors.
Oh, yeah.
I am
Yes.
aware of even counselors who have raped survivors
Oh,
in
yeah.
their
Yep.
offices. So one of the things we want to do is we want to report this. And
Yes.
so yes, let's talk after we're done here.
Okay, absolutely.
Seriously, I'm so sorry that that happened to you. That
Oh,
I hear that too many times. We
Yeah.
do hear that too many times.
yeah. And yeah, so that was kind of my first experience of therapy. And I stayed with her for a while because there were some really good points of therapy that she did. Again, it was not helpful for me because, especially back then, I mean, this was 30 years ago now, almost. Well, I guess, yeah, you know, definitely over 25 years ago.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
just say that.
I can't even remember.
So I guess after, going through therapy and stuff in my early 20s, I questioned the church a lot, and but was still kind of led towards, well, you have to get married in the temple. I mean, it's the culture thing, right?
Mhm.
Especially back then. I mean, it's different now. People are way more open to it, but I was the black sheep of my family, not being married in the temple off at the get-go. I didn't get sealed in the temple until um, I was pregnant with I will identify that I do have twins, and we had complications with that. So that's, a whole nother story. But we did get sealed in the temple before I had them. So they were born in the covenant, which the LDS Church teaches that is, you will take it adoption and make it so that it's the same as being born in the covenant. But if you're married outside the temple and have kids, or if you have kids before then you're shamed and guilted into your child is not born in the covenant. And so that ostracizes you in an eternal perspective.
Susie,
And
can you
it's
explain what it means to be sealed in the temple or and born in a covenant for people like me that really don't
yeah,
understand?
absolutely. And I'll tell you, I'm willing to share all of my experience of that because it is so messed up. So please feel free to ask any question of clarification. I have no, absolutely, there's no loyalty or fear of that organization.
Did you meet
So
your husband naturally, or it wasn't an arranged marriage? Like you,
no, in fact,
oh,
his
okay.
family, thank you for asking that, because that's a part of this is his family was very strongly trying to not get us to be married because of his familial yeah, because of his family. And so yeah, they pushed really, really hard to split us up and for us not to get married. And they were horrified that I would even be an option for him. But I did meet him at an LDS church. We were playing basketball. So that's fun. But he himself, and his story is his to share, but he was never convinced of really of the LDS Church and their practices and things like
That makes sense.
that.
Why he would, why he would choose you. Because, yeah, I was going to say he would have normally been expected to go to the temple, find a good LDS girl and marry her into the family line, that generational
Absolutely.
family line. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
So then we did our thing. And again, like I said, was black sheep of the family. And then I had siblings who then were not married in the temple and still are not, and not active, but they don't speak out like I do. So I was the only one that was ostracized and um, estranged, which is a blessing because I, I can thrive now being disconnected from those people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure, that makes it better.
yeah, yeah. So then, we were sealed in the temple and we lived this magical Mormon life, I guess is what you would call it. Um, with some hard trials, right? I mean, we had our, like I said, I think I said, so my oldest, I have twins. We had lots of complications with them and illnesses, and my one son is disabled from those complications.
Right.
And then, but we continue to have more children, and after he graduated, he's worked throughout different systems throughout the state. So but he ended up he got in with a therapy company at the beginning stages, which was a close family friend who was in the church. And that's significant because of the connections. And it was promised, if you help us build this therapy business from 3 therapists, and eventually when they fired him 5 years later, that he had helped grow that business to 45 therapists.
Wow.
That's a lot of therapists.
Yeah.
Right. And so, he worked really hard and I raised our kids. And after the birth of our last child, that child was held by a different perpetrator, not my perpetrators, but the father of my children's perpetrator. And it was the first time that the perpetrator had held our youngest child. And there was just it just was off. And immediately, my kid's dad grabbed that child from the perpetrator, handed the child to me, and said, never again. That person is never to touch this child ever again. And it was shocking, but not shocking at the same time, because which then led to the next day we went to church, came home, and my children's father had a pseudo seizure. And I did my best to help him. Came out of it. We talked about it. And we were like, whoa, what do we do with all of this? Because he had some flashes. And this sounds crazy, but I was able to, in connection with him, I was shown by God some of the things that had happened to him, which to this day I still have not shared with him. For the fact that I don't want him, because he's intellectual, I don't want to share that with him, because he would be the one that would process and say, well, is that a false memory? How do you know? And I don't, and I guess I'll just leave that at that, other than,
Especially since he's a therapist.
yeah. Right. And then that led into just some confusion, right? And we started processing, and it took us about 3 weeks to process, what do we do with this information? And we prayed about it, and we
Well,
even went to the temple about it.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I
Yeah.
want to ask you, since he is a therapist, now
Yeah.
the American Psychological Association never ratified false memories. So
Mhm.
as a counselor, how does he feel? I mean, what's his stance on that? The APA says it doesn't exist, false memories. Anything that the survivor comes up with are real memories, in fact. So
Yeah.
they're still teaching counselors in college that false memories exist, even when it's been debunked.
Well, see, when he actually went to the University of Utah, his master's program through them. And so, where his stance is now, I can't speak on that. At the time, I mean, this was, back in 2012.
Yeah.
And so at the time, just even the thought, and I think he separates, his trauma versus helping someone else through their trauma. I'm sure I don't want to speak for him, but I'm pretty sure that he would validate anyone's memories and not say, oh, that's a false memory, or teach that for himself. But then when it comes to himself, he questions it, right? Because of the abuse, and
Yeah.
it's
And
easier to
because
help
of the
someone else.
denial.
Yeah.
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 So fast forward. So that was like in May sometime, and I don't even know how many weeks had passed, really. But eventually we got hit hard, because we talked about different events and things that had happened, and different suspicions where, And I would say one thing in the LDS Church is it's like, well, they teach, well, it's the doctrine and the gospel is true. It's the people that are fallible. And
So the LDS Church, they said the doctrine and the gospel is good, but people are fallible.
right. And so you forgive and it goes back to well, don't trust your instinct or your intuition or your inspiration from God. Get direct revelation from God. But it leads back to the prophet / president, sole proprietor of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So getting your revelation from God is all of those things instead of God.
Right. As long as it goes back to the church is true. So, we really tried to gung-ho we are going to separate the organization itself from the gospel and God and all of that, and really pray and find the truth. And what ended up happening is we had lots of, you can call it metaphysical, spiritual, different realm, whatever suits. We had experiences that were undeniable. And again, this was back out in 2012, okay? And one of the things that I started saying, well, at first I was like, this is not okay. I made allegations that the perpetrator of my children's father was a perpetrator for 2 of my children, one of them being my disabled child. And only has it been recently of hearing other survivor stories that what I will say God showed me happened to my children is confirmed by people who have shared their story. So I'm so grateful that other people have been willing to share their stories. And I'm like, wow. And so that really did happen. And I started telling people back in 2012 that these are things that are happening within the church. And as soon as I did that, wow, boy, did it get crazy. Because I went to my perpetrator, who still, I was like, I didn't see him as a perpetrator. He was a trusted person. And this is the person who has worked in law enforcement and then for CPS. And at the time that this happened, can't remember if he just retired or if he was still working for DCFS. I went to him and I said, what do I do with this? And he's like, well, do you have proof? I said, how do you prove that my infants who are now not infants were sexually abused and ritualistically from what I believe? And again, I can't say for a surety, if you want to say, but things, right? And you can't explain how you know things sometimes other than God. And this perpetrator said, well, and I said, can I go to the police? And he said, no, don't go to the police. Don't go to DCFS. Don't report it at DCFS. He said, go to the church.
Yeah.
To what end? I mean, what was supposed to happen at the church?
Well, that's where all of this gets kind of murky, right? because he's my perpetrator. And at the time, we lived in the same state. So I had children and lived in the same state as these people. And so we had the same state president, and he was he was a bishop in that state at the time. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
I went
That
to the
makes,
state presidency.
oh my
Yeah, go ahead.
gosh. I was just going to say that makes perfect sense because here was this person that, you thought these things he did was normal. And it's like
Mhm,
law enforcement, and all of that, and trusted, person that you trusted.
mhm.
And this brings me to the question I was going to ask you earlier, like, when did you realize that this was abuse? When did you start realizing for yourself? You're talking about your children, but when did you realize for yourself that what was done to you was wrong? Or
Um,
did you even yet?
I hadn't at that time. I hadn't. It's only been recently, probably within, well, I will say there were some things that happened that were blatantly in 2019 opened my eyes at like, oh, wait a second. And we can get to that in a little
Yeah, that
bit.
makes sense though, that then you, at this point, when you were making allegations and God had revealed this to you about your children, and he's wanting proof
Yeah.
and it's
And
like,
I'm telling him things like there are uh blood sacrifices, babies being uh, sacrificed in underneath the Salt Lake City temple, LDS temple. And it's like, oh,
Yes,
that's
thank
crazy.
you. Yeah, no, this is exactly what's happening. People have reported, multiple people have. There's 5 levels deep, the basement and the temple. It's just not
Yeah,
what you see on the surface. So what you're saying has been reported by other people. You're absolutely right. People need to wake up to this fact. Um, so
yeah.
yeah.
And so, like I said, this is back in 2012, and I'm talking to
Hmm.
state presidents about it and bishops, and just trying to say, like, I don't know how I know this, and it sounds crazy, but I know it's happening. And I'm alleging that my children have been affected. And one thing that has been instilled in me my whole life, I've had some memories that I've kept with me my whole life, that I knew that I was abused. I was like, 1,000%, I'm going to do whatever I can to protect my kids and to stop the generational abuse. And so that's something that I still have a lot of guilt and shame about, that I wasn't able to protect them from it. And that I, in a sense, have been a perpetrator myself because of everything that has gone forth. I'm definitely not a perfect parent. I don't claim to be. I love my kids, and I try try to do my best, but I don't. I fail immensely all the time. Um, but I was so adamant, and so I did go to the state presidency, and lo and behold, again, and this again is, you know, uh, end of May 2012, beginning of June 2012, and I alleged it, and and what do you think they did? Any guesses, Cindy? Made a phone
Yeah,
call to
they
Pert McConkey.
yes, because that's what they do. That is in their manual. So
Right.
yeah.
uh, I want to
And then
I want to
go
say
ahead.
how sorry I am for what you're saying and expressing is very painful for you, I'm sure.
Right.
Um, that you couldn't protect your children, that you didn't know. But when you did know, you did something. And a lot of survivors have tremendous guilt because they are forced to perpetrate on others. Uh, that's a horribly painful reality when they discover that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when they, in our mind, we do make almost like a vow to not, to do everything humanly possible to make sure this doesn't happen to our children.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it does. And there is nothing that a survivor can do to prevent it, because with the multi-generational, the church, all the bloodlines, just everything about it, they ensure that it happens. So I just want to say to you and to all the survivors that hear this, it is not your fault.
Yeah.
It is horrible. It's a reality that none of us want to face, but it is not your fault. It is on them and the evil behind it. Because here you went to someone that could help, someone that is in a position, law enforcement, that could have helped, and you're told to take it to the church. And you did.
Yeah.
And then they
And
turned around and sent you to Kirkton and McConkey, or what happened from that?
yeah, so no, they just made the phone call. We were sitting there in the office, and then right in front of us, what do we do with this? My kid's father was working for this company, this therapy group, and they knew of this therapy group because this therapy group worked hand in hand with the church doing intensive outpatient treatment for sexual addiction. And so health information is not private in mental health, in hospitals throughout the state of Utah. I don't know if anybody is aware of this, but anytime you go to a doctor, it doesn't matter what group it is. If you go to a doctor outside of in a different system where you think that they're not going to have your medical records, there's a system that they pull up on their computer and they can see exactly what happened at a different facility that they're not even associated with.
So the information is shared, the connections are there, and the group has their
Yeah.
network,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Allegedly. Yes. Thank you. Allegedly. I can't prove it, but allegedly, from my understanding and my personal experience.
When you're
So
in
let
the,
oh, go ahead.
I was sorry, Cindy, I was just going to say, when you're in the um, ritual abuse network, the cultic, criminal, organized, extreme abuse um, world, like I have come out of, you just know.
Mhm.
That's why I said what I said. What were you going to say, Cindy?
Alleged.
I don't remember now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll remember it and I'll bring it up. I guess what I was saying is, it sounds like you did the right thing. You came forward, you told the church, and then they told Kirkton, and Kirkton, of course, do what they do, which is try to cover it up. But they punished you. It sounds like perhaps maybe they
Oh yeah.
punished you.
Yeah, we're
Yeah, you
getting into
got
that.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah. So then they're on that same week. Um, we're dumbfounded because all they do is say, hey, we can pay for therapy for you uh, and your family. Well, okay. Well, how is that going to help us? And then we were like, okay, well, so this perpetrator was in a church authority position over vulnerable adults. So we went to the perpetrator's stake president and met with him and shared the allegations. And that stake president also said, well, have you contacted Curtin McConkie? And we said, yep. And he's like, okay, well, there's nothing else I need to do then.
What a shame. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
That's
right.
appalling. Once again,
Yes.
they don't fail to disappoint. Uh, did they tell you anything like, don't speak another word about this? Did they, threaten you in any way? Like, we're going to take away your callings, your endowments.
No,
Did they do?
they went a step further than that.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So, my then perpetrator was livid that I would even continue to talk about it and try to get help from other sources. And
Help for you or for them?
for my kids, help for my kids.
Okay.
And expressing like, what are we going to do about this? I need help because this is not okay. It needs to stop. And I didn't know what I know now, which, gosh, would have been so helpful. But again, then we had some spiritual experiences, and I ended up with everything that had happened, the stress of being a mother of lots of kids under 7, one being a special needs with medical issues, having all of this pressure of what happened to my kids, the damage. And I didn't sleep. And I was, it wasn't even 6 months postpartum, and had a religious psychosis in some aspects. It was also diagnosed as bipolar, but I was sent to a psychiatric facility for 2 weeks. And in that psychiatric facility, I was, it's so fragmented, but I was drugged. I was there for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
There's multiple times that I can't even recall days, you know. And there were specific bizarre things that happened, and I know that they happened. I was in rooms where I was watched with cameras, and in psychiatric facilities, there's different levels. They have one that's called like an intensive care unit where they do have cameras in the room, and you're by yourself, and you can't be in a general population. But then they have an area where you can be in a general population, and you have different therapies and things like that.
Mhm.
But my experience, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, were you sent there involuntarily?
Um, well, because I was speaking out about different things against the church.
Mhm.
I was like, you're crazy. This is not happening. You're delusional. You're psychotic. You have religious grandiosity that you would think that you would know that these things are happening, which is, like I
Oh,
said,
so they
they're
told you you were
sacrificing.
having religious psychosis.
Yeah.
You yourself weren't thinking that you had.
I mean, it was mixed because of the hypnosis and all of the triggers that I had in my years. The main theme was, you need to sleep, 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 get
Oh,
sleep,
so they were using a
get
code
sleep.
word.
Oh yeah.
So then they would be able to say anything to you and make you believe what they're saying is
Right,
true.
right. Mm-hmm.
Did they have
And
someone come and pick you up? Like, did they have uni come and get you? Or did
no,
you drove there
um,
yourself?
my well, because my the father of my kids was so concerned because I wasn't getting sleep and I was having mental health issues, but there was nobody there to actually help me sort out everything that was going on,
Okay.
if that makes
Yeah, and
sense.
it
So
does. And
how
sleep.
did you get, I'm sorry, how did you get to the hospital? Who drove you
So
there?
the father of my kids drove me there, and then I had self-harm, and that was kind of the final straw, as I had locked myself in a bathroom and was I didn't commit self-harm because I was then something snapped in me where I was like, okay, I'm going to come out. Let's talk about this. Let's get help. And then here I have these forces of someone who's legitimately trying to help me, which is the father of my children, but then being surrounded by perpetrators that he wasn't aware of the length of what the perpetrators did to me because I wasn't aware at the time. Like I hadn't made the
Yeah.
connection, so he would have known. And so while this perpetrator is like, sleep, sleep, and as
Yeah.
I'm
So
He's,
saying,
he's
you
giving,
know,
he's
he's
giving
giving you a
the,
code word.
yeah,
The
he's
code
telling
yeah,
word.
you to not
yeah,
believe yourself, to believe what you're being told. And
yeah.
sleep deprivation is horrible. I experienced that before too, where my own husband, called 911, not knowing what to do. Because sleep deprivation causes it mimics where your
Mm-hmm.
reality is you're not able to distinguish what you're being told from what reality really is
Mm-hmm.
as well. And it can mimic psychosis or, lead you to believe that, well, I'm not really making sense like I usually do
Right.
anyway. But yeah, it's a very real thing. And then when you get the sleep that you need, it goes
Mm-hmm.
away because
Right.
the brain is being affected.
Unless unless you're handed off to different perpetrators, which
Yes.
I then was,
Oh no.
and in the psychiatric institution.
And how
And
old were you at this time?
I was 36.
Okay. All right.
So um, never had, so before when I was in therapy, didn't have this diagnosis of um, bipolar, right? So if you go into the psychiatric care, most people are not diagnosed for the first time at 36 years old with bipolar disorder. It's usually if it's actual real bipolar or whatever, if you want to call it that even. Um, sorry, I'm very skeptical of lots of things, but
You have every right to be sarcastic and skeptical. I totally agree because counselors will misdiagnose survivors too, because they're probably pulling a play here too. They're going to add this to your record in case you and your
oh yeah,
husband got a divorce. They would use that
oh
against you in a custody battle.
yeah. Well, we'll get.
Okay, here we go.
See, you're following right along.
Trying to know the playbook.
Yeah. And so anyway, so then in the psychiatric facility, they actually used showering with a male counterpart um, resident. Our rooms were connected, and we shared we shared a bathroom, and they had us shower together, like as I was when I was a child.
Oh
So you're
no.
married, you're 36, and they put
Mm-hmm.
you in a shower with a male resident. at
Yeah.
this
In a
psychiatric hospital.
psychiatric.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
How awful.
that would be
Well, with
horrible.
cameras. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, with
With
cameras,
cameras. Yeah.
which means that exists
Mm-hmm.
and could be pulled
Yeah.
potentially
Yeah.
if requested by. Okay, yeah, let's definitely
Well, we'll
talk
see
after
about that.
this.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll just leave it at that, but I was there for a full 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And then as long as I would do as I was instructed, it was, oh, you're so close to being so healthy. Just let's interview you and you'll be out of here in a day or two. And that lasted all the way up until the full 14 days.
Mm. Another rule law that they broke because
Right.
you can't be held more than 72 hours in the state of Utah, but they kept you for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they probably drugged you. So you probably have, yeah,
Multiple times. Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Uh, and there's a whole bunch else that I could share with that, but I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a lot that
And
you've shared. Thank you
It,
for sharing all that.
yeah.
yes, thank you.
Uh,
This is just blowing my mind. I'm sorry. I'm trying to, I mean, I've heard about these things happening,
mm,
but they're so brazen.
mhm.
They just do this out in the open and they do this to people and there's nurses. You're like, why aren't the nurses helping you? Why aren't these people helping you? Uh,
But they're
yeah,
not
I mean,
aware of it. They're not aware that it's going on, really.
but they know the drugs they're giving you. Those are
Well, right.
box drugs. So,
But that's
um,
where the trust in, oh, the doctors know what they're doing. There's a
mm,
reason why, they don't know I mean, your average nurse isn't going to know someone's trauma that, you know, sleep is a trigger word. And when I'm valid in saying, please stop telling me to sleep, I need rest,
mhm,
that looks crazy, right? Well, why can't we use the word sleep? And when you can't articulate it,
mhm,
Yeah.
it just it induces that craziness of, oh, well, yeah, this person is crazy. I can't help them because they won't even use a rational word like sleep. They're demanding that you use rest instead of sleep.
So many survivors, even like myself, um, when you go to a psychiatric unit or behavioral health, and it's supposed to be to get help and to get care for what you're dealing with the trauma effects or whatever, or for self-harm, whatever the reason. It's like what survivors don't always realize is that they're actually being reaccessed and reprogrammed. And
mhm,
they use the wording just like what you're saying, and they say it over and over, and they don't know. I think that some of the people that are put in place do know. They know
Right.
exactly what they're doing,
mhm,
and and it's like we're just handed over, really,
Mm-hmm.
and drugged, and like all the things that we were already told and you already groomed with, and just all the doubts that they were already saying to you before you even went there, that
Yeah.
they were placing in you within you. It's like a recipe for disaster, and just it puts you right into um, like being a victim all over again, and it's very re-traumatizing. I'm so sorry
Mm-hmm.
that happened to you.
Yeah. But I will say, um, through all of this, it has given me experience and understanding that I wouldn't otherwise have.
yeah,
Mm.
And compassion and connection with people that I otherwise wouldn't have. So, not that I would even wish it upon my perpetrators to have the, the same experience, because they probably have had something similar to it, or, enough for themselves. But, who's going to stop it? Where is it going to stop? Where is it going to end? Right?
Yeah.
And I think what we can do individually is share our stories. So again, my gratitude for you both to have this is just not enough gratitude to express to you guys for doing what you're doing.
Well, it goes both ways, girlfriend.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
does.
we need you. We need you to get this word out. And I personally am biased because I think Sherry and I have a unique perspective than other podcasts because
Mhm.
she's a survivor. She's gone through it. And I've worked with survivors for 7 years, and I know what the perpetrators are doing and how and when they do it and how it works and all that kind of stuff. And so I think we make a good team because we're compassionate, we understand. You don't have to go into great detail because we already kind of know what you're talking about anyway, and we're not scared of any of it. Any of it, you
Right.
could say
Right.
anything, and it's not going to phase us. So, yeah, this has been a great podcast so far. You've done a great job articulating what you've gone through, and it's going to help, like you said, it's going to help so much people. And usually, everybody that we interview, they always say after it's over with, they were nervous and scared before they got on to talk, but then they found out it was so healing to them after they were finished with it. And so that is,
Yeah. Well, I
we
can say
couldn't,
I'm already, yeah, I've already had so much healing to this
Mhm.
point. So I thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
So continue.
Okay. And I guess so that was the first experience. Then, of course, the ward after I got released, everybody helps this poor, crazy young mother who needs help and is insane. What do we do to help? So instead of being taken away callings, I get put into callings.
Why do you
why?
think they,
Um, I think because, you know, the the programming of or the reprogramming and the settling down, like, everything that you think is real is not real. So go back to your roots and your foundation of being born in the covenant and the blessings of having your family for eternity, which is
I
quite a
just
lure for, yeah,
go back to regular life, just working and doing
yeah,
the things that
yeah.
like life as usual.
Be a good Mormon little girl.
they know they control you now,
Right.
and you are now part of them, and you can be trusted with callings, and
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, they took
Kind of like
advantage
if
of
you,
that.
they did kind of like if you
Yeah.
stay within that like confine of them.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And in fact, we were told that the children of my father, or the father of my children, um, was on the short list to be a bishop just shortly after all of this had happened.
Are you still married to the father of your children?
Uh, that's complicated, but
Okay.
technically, yes.
Okay.
And we can
Okay.
discuss that. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Okay.
then moving forward, we go all in again because, again, the programming, although I wasn't fully in it, I mean, that was kind of where I say for me, the catalyst of the beginning of the end. But I kind of continued for the sake of really figuring out for myself what I needed to separate, if that makes sense. Not necessarily an infiltrate or gather information, but I really had to learn how to discern truth from fiction and deceit, and how they do, I'm going to use the word veil, how they do veil what they are doing. And I didn't go to the temple after that. And I didn't have a temple recommend until 2018 because, I mean, we were faithful members, tithe payers. I could have, but I chose not to. And then one of my siblings was getting married in the temple, and I wanted to participate. Who wants FOMO, right? After this long awaited sibling waited a long time and finally found his person, I wanted to celebrate in that with them. And so went back to the temple. And at this point, we were living in a much different county. And so the one that we would attend was different. And I had many different experiences with that. Then, like I said, we attended the siblings' wedding. And just shortly after that, it was the end of 2018. There was just so many things that I could not deny any longer. I was like, I can't go back. And I was torn, and then prayed a lot and started asking a lot of questions. And that's kind of when we really started finding information to understand what we needed to eventually, in the fall of late summer, early fall of 2019, we're like, okay, we've got to get out of this. But we had then moved back near the perpetrators and started asking questions like, how would you know if the prophet is a fallen prophet? And the standard answer is, well, God will take him out. Well, and how exactly? He dies? Well, then if he dies, he's an old man. Did he die of natural causes? How often do they give a cause of death, or how they died? It's mostly health issues, and we're going to keep the privacy of these people. And that just didn't sit right. I mean, well, if he's a true prophet of God and he's a fallen, and then he's fallen, and he dies, how do you know that? When did he become fallen then? How long was he a fallen prophet? How long was he teaching, giving revelation and all of these things before he was taken out? And people did not like that. So then, which leads us to, again, speaking out, right? Because we don't leave quietly and we make wild accusations. Guess where I end up again?
Back in the psych ward.
Not the psych
Oh.
ward.
The same one.
Same one.
Same exact one. Guess how long I was
No.
there for?
Another 2
2
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. What do we win?
Yeah.
Well, and at this time, it's different because my childhood perpetrator uses the code word and has law enforcement take me to an initial place where then the perpetrator comes in, uses his magic trick of sleep. She just needs sleep. Well, is this her baseline? You know, these people, these social workers don't know me.
Yeah.
And this trusted person that's so lovingly here sitting next to me, just saying, she just needs sleep. That's all she needs is sleep. Then helps me change my emergency contact from the father of my children to another trusted perpetrator, which then withholds codes from the father of my children. So he doesn't have access to me for 14 days. In the meantime, he's working, trying to figure out what is going on. We have multiple crises. We have multiple children with different health concerns, like severe health concerns. We had a close, your list of stressors, your typical list of 10 stressors. We had 9 of those 10 stressors. And having a faith crisis, right, is one of those.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, find out that my trusted perpetrator then abuses my disabled child, sends him to school because not until within the last couple of years did we find out that one of our other children actually heard the abuse and did not know what to do with it. And so the perpetrator abused this child. It was heard from a different room by this other child who is a child that doesn't know what to do, right? Because all of this crisis, my mom's in this psychiatric treatment center. My dad's working and busy, and these people who are supposed to be trusted people are now abusing my sibling that is disabled, sends him to a special needs school. And because of the bruising, they open up a child protective service case. How about that? And guess who gets accused for the abuse?
You.
No, the father of my children, because I'm in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So is he like the scapegoat?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then he loses his job at his clinic.
No, he didn't, because
Oh, okay.
at that point, when the workers came out, because I was so open and so, and our kids were so open and honest, they had to close the case because my child that witnessed it didn't say anything of who it was, but there was no proof, because it's like, well, when did it happen? Because the perpetrators and the actual perpetrators, the timing was never confirmed. There was no place to confirm who was with him at what time. Does that, but let's just throw it out there because we can.
So it was just thrown out.
Yeah. Closed. at that point in time in 2019. Beginning of or end of 2019. So then in December of 2019, we officially write letters and say, remove our names from the records of the LDS Church. And we wrote it to, we'll just say, familial connections. And so at that point, it was like, okay, everybody, literally, I had one person who would talk to me. And it was because she had no connection with the church, and her children were friends with my children, and she didn't understand what was going on, but she was supportive until she had to move out of state.
Wow.
And then we just lost connection after that because she was busy with her new life. And
How long of a
then
time period did you have her support?
they actually moved quickly. So I had her support from the fall until they moved at the end of January of 2020. Or yeah, so just a few months.
It's good you had the support when you
Yeah,
needed it, but
Hmm.
yeah,
unfortunately, then she moved.
yeah. And then March of 2020, what happened March of 2020? So then we're renting a house and we get kicked out of this house because this is the house where we turned in our, in the neighborhood where we turned in our temple recommends. And the bishop came to the door and said, well, now all of your temporal blessings are removed. So at this point, we're just like dumbfounded because it's COVID, and we're living life as best we can, and our disabled child is literally experiencing people screaming in his face, and we're like, wow, we got to get out of this
Yeah.
place. We need to move. And what better time to pick up and leave? And so we started preparing the best we could to do that.
So Susie, like when you look back on your entire journey and I know sometimes it's hard to identify this, but is there a theme that you see where God put people in place, or sometimes it helps to think of like where you've been through such incredible pain and heartbreak and how you can see where he's turned that into purpose.
Um,
Um,
yeah, it's let's say it's like a flower that blooms, you know. It's the core has always been there, and then as you nurture it, however that may be, through any kind of experience, whether it be traumatic or heartwarming and joyful and exhilarating, you bloom and you blossom and you grow. And so I would say that, yeah, there's always that piece where he's been there. Um, but to be honest, there's a lot where I have rejected myself. I'm like, how and why would you let allow all this to happen? No. So
that's a question every survivor asks.
Mhm.
And if it is for your good, then how do I continue on to stop it so that, and, however I can.
What would you tell people, wrapping up here, like other survivors that maybe are married to um, their handler or perpetrator that's or still in the LDS Church, um, who really aren't safe or
Yeah.
who need that
Um,
hope?
so what I would say to people who are still in contact with perpetrators and handlers, find it within yourself to take it to God, and He will open the doors. It might not be like a kick down, full blown, here you go, it's right there, it sometimes it's really slowly opened, but you also have to have that within yourself where you can discern that it's really from God, and to not give up because we're here. There's other people here. Don't give up. You're not alone. Even as lonely as it is, you're not alone.
Thank you, Susie, so much.
Yeah,
You are
thank you.
very courageous to share your incredible story. You're definitely a walking miracle. And um, yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Cindy. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Relentless Hope podcast and for believing survivors.
Mhm.
And thank you again for hanging with us through this. And we just pray, Lord God, that there would be tremendous healing for Susie and all of the survivors out there, that there would be children that would be able to escape the abuse,
Mhm.
and not so much escape the church, because the church can be a very wonderful place for families, and
Mhm.
but the the things that have been coming out of this church are just so evil, Lord. And I know that it grieves your heart to see what has been done to the children, God, that you created. So please, we ask for the protection of all of them and the rescue through your son, Jesus. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.